Bob, that video never gets old. Welcome to Just the Facts episode number. What is it, Bob? He's got 10 and a 2, 12. Episode number 12. We're talking about who's on the phone. If you joined us in our last podcast, vodcast, whatever you want to call it, on Just the Facts, we talked about leads, lead generation, who's handling those leads, that type of thing. And we have an extra special guest that's going to be joining us in just a couple minutes. I won't steal Bob's thunder and tell you who it is, but it's a very special guest, and we're looking forward to having him on here to join us in our conversation about who's on the phone, who's that person, who's that new customer, what are they doing, all that kind of good stuff. Joining me, as always, is Mr. Bob Grill. Welcome, Bob.
How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
You look fantastic.
It's a good day. Thanks. I am very happy. Had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend and week after, answering all those emails. And so it was a good week. It was good. How about you? Good?
I've been doing great. I've been busier than ever, as you know, and busy is always a good thing. Keeps your mind focused and keeps the rest of the world at bay. So I don't mind being busy.
No, that's good. And I know a lot of what you're busy doing is talking to a lot of the manufacturers out there about this very subject that we're talking about.
Exactly
and
right.
Really sourcing inventory is a big issue, but really starting to handle some of the leads that are coming in on the trade-in side. A lot of people wanting to sell their car, maybe wanting to get out from under their car. And so as we dive into our subject matter today and really talk about today's customer and who's actually on the other side of whether it be an email, whether it be some sort of a lead, whether it be on the phone or through a text message, whatever it is, really understanding that customer. So there's been some changes, right, over the last year plus with the consumer. A lot of consumers a little bit more educated, right, I would say, and looking at, trying to decide if they're going to buy something, especially a car. So maybe talk a little bit about that consumer, like what has changed? Are they spending more time online? Are they really, filling out lead forms? Are they calling into the dealership? Are they showing up? What's happening?
Well, it is funny with all that changes, some things remain the same, right? And everyone in the industry knew over time, the people wanting to do business completely online would increase, and certainly with the new generation of buyers now and that kind of thing, it has gone up. But, there's still that personal feel that people want. There's still that touch in the dealership. There's still the feel of the wheel. There's still the thrill of going to a dealership. So even through everything that's been chaotic, it's been a limited amount of growth in the completely online, completely cyberspace, if you will, doing business. People still like dealerships, throughout the generations that we've been in business and throughout all the bad reputation and everything, we still manage to be a thrill of a lifetime for a customer. It's something you remember. Everyone remembers buying a car, especially your first car or a special moment car. You bought one for your child or whatever. So yes, there's been growth. There's no question about that. And COVID certainly pushed some of that. But it's not an overwhelming amount. And certainly our guest today will be able to talk to that. But one thing that has changed is the dynamic of the relationship between the consumer and the dealer, because dealers today, in an effort to find inventory, since all the standard ways of obtaining inventory are struggling at best, be it the auctions, the fleets, the what have you, dealers are spending a lot of effort trying to find inventory and advertising. We'll buy your car even if you don't buy ours, reaching out to their service customers, reaching out to their old client base. And that's a different kind of customer all of a sudden. Sure, it's a customer you sold 2 or 3 cars to, but they don't necessarily want to talk to you about buying a car. They're talking about selling you their car. And there's a distinct difference in that. And we're going to touch base with that later. That's a couple of questions we've been asked to ask David, and we're certainly going to do that.
No, that's great. And, before we get there, one of the things that I think about, especially with the consumer looking more online, spending more time, really wanting to be confident in their process. So we talk a lot about that with Carfax, right? Is, that confident consumer and how to build more confidence. So with those changes you just mentioned, even though they're not, outlandish, there are still some changes. There are still some people that want to do more of that process online. But then, what does a dealer do? Maybe a best practice from you to really gain that confidence that the consumer is seeking.
It's a word and a phrase that's way overplayed, to be honest with you, and way overused. But it really boils down to transparency and making the comfort level there for the consumer. New cars are one thing, right? There's a lot of different techniques for selling new cars online or over the phone. But used cars, there's an inherent nervousness about something that's not brand new, right? And the thing about it is, no customer really anticipates a used car being perfect, right? In fact, when we represent them as perfect, they get a little nervous, which is contrary to some of our CPO programs and so forth. But what they want to know is, what was the car before you got it, right? No one wants an excuse car. No one wants to buy a used car they have to explain or feel sorry about. But they want to know what it looked like when you got it. Where did the car come from? Who owned it? Was it taken care of? And what have you done to make it sale ready? What was your inspection process? What did you find? What did you fix? What did you not fix? All that leads to more credibility, more comfort level with the consumer. And the more you can build that comfort level, the better you are to closing a car deal, if that's really the end game.
No, that's great. That's wonderful, and thank you for that. And so I just wanted to remind everyone that's listening in right now live, if you've got a question that you have or you want to make a comment, use the comment section there in YouTube Live, and you'll see that in the corner of your screen. Also in Facebook Live, if you have a question, we'd love to answer those at the very end during our after party. And so, Bob, with that little commercial to let people know about questions, I think it's time that we bring in our expert, don't you?
Yeah, I absolutely do, and I'm very, very excited. In fact, we are. This is a friend of mine, a friend of Carfax. David and I have done several presentations in the past, but David Kain is the president of Kain Automotive. He is a nationally renowned 20 group leader and trainer and extraordinaire when it comes to things such as online presence and phone. So, David, we're honored that you're here, and we're happy you're here. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, DJ. And certainly a welcome that my mom would be very proud of. So good job, Bob. I appreciate that. It's fun to listen to your all's pre-talk because you hit on so many key variables that all dealers are struggling with right now, whether they're a franchise dealer or an independent dealer. Everybody is going through that changing dynamic, and it's really interesting, Bob. And I think this is more of a conversation than perhaps an interview. So I'm going to take advantage of that and throw something out for you guys. We saw during the early part of the pandemic the rush by the OEMs to implement digital retailing, and the digital retailing companies couldn't deliver their product fast enough. And then not surprisingly, just this week or last week, we see one of the leaders in that category be purchased by CDK, and another one just today that's doing a big job with digital retailing in the chat space get purchased by Reynolds and Reynolds. So what's interesting about that is during the inventory shortage, we're seeing a retrenchment of what you and I grew up with, which was, get them in. If you have the product, you're going to be able to sell the vehicle. But digital retailing is all about that transparency and building that relationship in an online environment. So I am curious what your thoughts are on that and whether you're seeing the same type of dynamic exist.
Before you get there, this is crazy, breaking news right here on Just the Facts. So thank you, David Kain, for that, for some breaking news that people may not have known. It's like, holy cow, I'm going to get on my computer and find that out. But go ahead, Bob, you can answer that.
No, you're spot on, David. And not only are you spot on in general with the industry, but even the manufacturers have recognized that. We're partnered with all of them, and they have reached out to us in droves in the last 30 days asking for help and educating the dealers on the difference and how to handle this different type of business scenario. And you know this better than anyone, David. Everyone knew that it would go to that space, right? That's a predictable model. You don't have to be an expert to see that happening. but the growth rate is what's not sure, right? Like even through COVID, at the risk of sounding harsh, literally people were afraid of dying, and it still only rose up to 15%, right? So how that dynamic plays out, no one knows, right? The internet's here to stay, though. That part we figured it out, and that's only taken us 20 years to do that, right? But to your point, dealers are finding it to be true because they're not comfortable with it, right? And whenever they're not comfortable, they reach out to help to people like you and us, and they're just not sure, right? What are the right moves? And because no one's been here before, right? This is uncharted territory. We're all still guessing. It's educated guessing, but it's guessing nonetheless. There's no model we can follow. There's no previous track record we have doing this. So it is a work in progress at best. However, with that being said, you have a lot of dealer partners as we do. There are dealers that are accelerating in these times, and there's dealers that are struggling. So I'm going to put that one back on you and your expertise, right? The ones that you see doing well, doing better, what are just one or two of the key differences they had to change? There's certainly a difference between an inventory customer and a sales customer, right? So let's just start there, because that's the number one question we're getting. So what is the best way to handle that call? Let's take the inventory call, for example. So Bob Grill Ford has some success driving some customers to my door to sell me their inventory. Who should be handling that conversation?
Well, I think, honestly, it's the person who's most confident on the phone. And that really is a culmination of all of the training effort that goes in. And as much as we think we can provide good skills training, nothing beats that mid-level desk manager every day waking up and getting that team engaged in the processes and tactics it takes to really lead the conversation with the call. Not surprisingly, we work with the whole spectrum of a hybrid type of operation, to salespeople doing it, to BDCs doing the first interaction. Here's the beauty of it. Whatever process you have in play, it's the key factor. Structure is secondary to the process. And if everybody can use quality processes and good communication tactics on the telephone to lead and take that guest through all the dynamics of the conversation, you're going to have a desirable outcome. What happens a lot of times is we do not equip the team member to really lead the conversation. And as such, whether it's a BDC rep or a frontline salesperson who's on the phone, their whole dynamic is, when can you come in? And
right.
That's not what the guest is looking for. If we called a phone store, a computer store, a mattress store, whatever, we would want to talk to somebody and gather data. And this old adage of let's get them on and off the phone in 2 minutes or less, as though we're running a call center trying to schedule technicians or something. We're not. We're working with people who are spending $30, $40, $80, $120,000 for a vehicle. And we think, oh, they don't know that they have to be invited in. People know to come in. They drive past car dealerships every day of their life, so they know to pull in if they're interested in the vehicle. When they reach out to us on the telephone or by text, email, or otherwise, we need to facilitate some level of sincerity and honesty and transparency, to bring out that word again, as to what they're interested in. And the Marchex study that we got access to earlier this year in February, they showed us once again that the dealerships that have the highest show rate from inbound phone calls and outbound phone calls typically spend 6 to 8 minutes on the call. But inevitably, when you go into a big BDC or something, you've got some floor manager walking around going, come on, get them in, ask them. And it's like, dude, I'm not going to come into your store if you're going to treat me as though I'm the next person in the checkout line. And we talk about that. We say, are we a cash register dealer or are we a full service dealer? And if we're a cash register dealer, you better have all the inventory at the lowest prices and give the highest trade-ins, because that's what it's going to take for you to lead the market. If you're a typical dealership, you're going to have to give a high quality of service and really be attentive to what the needs of the guest are.
You know what? You're exactly right, and very interesting that I found and building certain training materials is the Cox Automotive study. Cox Automotive obviously is one of the industry leaders in online tools and so forth. And even Cox Automotive said your first point of physical contact of communication is at your front door, right? So they might find out information online. They may look and research online, but it's the first point of contact is still over 50% at that front door. So, the online showroom is the same as your physical showroom. How you handle that guest matters whether they show up or not, right? I mean, there's the old adage of you don't sell online is overplayed and probably overstated at this point, right? So the full transaction may not take place there, but your very ability to even get them to want to do business with you takes place there. And that is such a unique asset that is underutilized, quite honestly, right? Underutilized to the fullest degree.
It is. Yeah, and you and I had a conversation ever so briefly today about SRPs and VDPs, so search results pages and vehicle detail pages. And what's interesting about all that is a lot of dealers do not understand from the standpoint of a conversion rate at their website what is actually happening on a percentage basis. And you end up where you have dealerships and employees. I do this each time I present. I say, what is the conversion rate? Meaning the percent of people that go to your website and fill out a form or actually call you after filling out the form. And the national average is like 1.8% to 2%, right? And people are aghast and they're like, oh, it should be 30%. And the guests really don't have the interest in completing everything and going into that environment. That's why they reach out to us, because we're the professionals and we should be designed to really coach them along. And going back to what you were saying, that level of engagement really is critical in all variables of the deal. And you look at the history, which you are intimate with. You look at the information on the trade value and all of those dynamics. How can we compress those to a 30-second tidbit,
right,
and earn the guest respect to go forward? I just think that's a real misnomer in our industry.
One of the items we were asked to discuss with you, and we want to make sure we get to it, so I'm going to bring it up right now. We're talking about consumers and strangers online, but what about your best customer? What about the customer in the service department, right? Now, we're going to take our best customer who loves coming to our dealership and does it on a regular basis and is sitting in that service department, just getting their car taken care of, and we're going to broach them because they happen to be driving what we exactly need on the lot, right? The 2017 3 to 4 year old car that's got the right miles that we sold brand new. Everything's lining up with the stars on that car. How do you approach them? Because you don't want to take your best customer who just came by for an oil change and say, hey, why don't you come up front and let us try and sell you a car, right? That's not why they came by, and you don't want to alienate them. So do you have any kind of insights as to how best to handle your customers in that service department that they have the cars you're looking for? What's the best way to go about that? Have you heard any out there?
Yeah, let me present a mashup of ideas.
Yeah.
We're actually presented by dealers as members of our 20 groups. And when we go to the 20 groups, Bob, they have to bring their best idea. And it's right. The best part of being a 20 group member is because you get to sit there and absorb 20 different ideas from your peer group. So going way back, and Bob, you'll remember this, when Eustace Wolfington used to go around the Ford environment and he would say the point of sale is the point of resale. So right. Everything that you do in the service department really becomes a function of what you did at the point of sale. So it's difficult to go back as a stranger into your service department and say, hey, I'm Bob, remember me, I sold you a vehicle. And they're like, yeah, sort of do. You were over in the corner, whatever, but you haven't talked to me since then, so no big deal. Right. So one of our members of our 20 group created this concept that they call the update. And I'm not going to give you the name of the store because I don't want everybody rushing to their website and taking a look at it. So name it whatever you want. So the update is presented at the delivery and it says, Bob, when you come in for service, one of the things that we offer as a client of ours is we're going to give you an update. And that update's going to tell you all about your service and how you're taking care of your car and any other recommendations to keep it in top running order. But we'll also, at your discretion, we'll provide you the current value as it compares to the market. And that way we'll give you an update. And should you decide you want to move into another vehicle, we'll also be able to give you a comparison from that perspective. And no pressure. It's just an update, and it's just how we do business at X Automotive. Now, I thought that was a spectacular idea. So here's the mashup. Another member of our 20 group created this concept, and it was called an X Original. So Bob Grill Ford Original. And so basically at delivery, what we say is, Bob, thank you so much for buying your vehicle from us. You now own a Bob Grill Original. And when you come to trade it, if you've serviced it here, if you've maintained it, and you've kept it in good working order and maintained the exterior appearance and so on and so forth, it's going to be worth more money at our dealership than it is anywhere else. So as a result, we are then able to market it on our lot as a wedge-in type vehicle. It's not a used vehicle. It's not a certified pre-owned vehicle. It is a Bob Grill Original. And we'll put the name on there, and we'll market it on our website that way. And we've got a story to tell. So when you look at that and you update them each time they come in for service, it really should drive all the profit centers of the dealership and put you in a position to where when you do go back and say hi to that service customer, they're expecting it. Now, right. That works great if organically they came through you. But what we would also recommend is when we do get the service schedule done, we start fishing for opportunities. And that's where you go into your equity mining tool and you study the dynamics and you see where there is an opportunity. And hey, here's what's funny, DJ and Bob, is have you ever seen a marketplace that turned people who were upside down right side up quicker than what has happened in the last 3 months? And it's really difficult for salespeople to move their lips and say, well, you were upside down, but now you have equity.
Yeah, now you're up 25%. That's great. That's great. Those are two terrific ideas, by the way. They make a lot of sense. And we always talk about it as homegrown inventory, what you referred to, what they call the X, right? And that's exactly right. That's always been the fastest selling, most profitable inventory there is. So to be able, when you got in, Dave, and I got in, we always said there was no such thing as a used car factory. Remember, that was the first thing you were told.
Oh, yeah.
You got mad at you for wanting to find a perfect used car. But there is today. You absolutely can create your own used car factory, between your service and the way you take care of the customer back there and your lease returns, maximizing your use of your lease returns. There is no better factory than the ones you create at your own dealership. So that's outstanding.
Yeah, and the truth of it is, back when we used to do the what was known in the Ford world as the plan, and I'm kind of aging myself when I say this, but we had the vehicle dynamics already described up on the board. We would really embarrassed to say this, DJ, we would take a Polaroid and we would put your name on it, and we would say, this vehicle will be due in July 17th. If you're interested in it, let us know, and we'll make arrangements for you to come in and test drive it.
Sounds like half a car.
Yeah, Polaroid's made a comeback. So it's aging yourself, but it's back. So are bell bottoms too. So
there we go.
That's good. And so one of the things that we want to talk about, David, on this, before we go into our Q&A portion, what we call our after party at Just the Facts, is what about you? When there's a dealer out there that needs some training and they've got some high turnover and they've got some folks there that really need some information to really help them sell more cars and really talk about what we're talking about today. Like, how do I address that customer, that new customer that's out there today? So what is it that Kain Automotive does that can help the dealer that's out there?
Well, our real mainstay is helping them create a communications process that acknowledges the needs of the guest, engages them at a high level, and causes them to want to participate in purchasing a vehicle at that dealership. So, as I mentioned earlier, some dealerships like to do an A to Z program. Some like to do a hybrid between the internet and the BDC, and some really like the full-on business development center approach. So we will do everything necessary. There's 8 areas that we've worked on with our clients over the course of the last 18 years. And these eight areas will literally shave a year to 2 years of development and profitability off of a homegrown process, if you will. So we've seen it. Sad to say, this is about my 40th year in the car business. I started in 1982, but well before that as a dealer's kid hanging around the dealership. But we really just take where they are and help them be better. So we're all prone to watch commercials. So there used to be a commercial called BASF. It says, we don't create it, but we make it better. And that's really what we do, is we take the energy and the skills of your team and the processes that you have in place, and we help you make it better.
So from Just the Facts, we fully endorse Kain Automotive. So go there at kainautomotive.com. That's our commercial for Mr. David Kain. And what's fun about these, especially when we have guests, Bob, is I just get to sit back and listen. I'm a big fan, David, of everything that you do. And when you speak at conferences and hear your name, come out of 20 groups, it's a pretty cool thing to have you on here. So we really appreciate you coming on and joining us on Just the Facts for this episode. And right, Bob? Good guy.
I am more than happy to spend time with David. He's always got a smile. He's always got a positive spin on no matter what we're talking about. I'm more of a driver, and Dave's more of a philosopher, so he tends to keep me grounded. So it's always a pleasure working with David. I enjoy it every time we do it.
Absolutely. You got it. And so don't leave us, though. If you need to, we told you that we would do this in under 30 minutes. And so we have done that for you. But we're going to stick around in what we call our after party. So we'd love for you to keep with us on that. But if you have to go, we're going to say goodbye to you. And make sure you go to justthefacts.podbean.com to catch all of our episodes. Or if you're watching us on YouTube right now, all of those episodes are available to you right there from a click of a button. From Facebook Live audience, stick with us. YouTube Live audience, also stick with us. We'll take a short 10-second break and be right back with you. And we're back. Not quite enough time to go to the bathroom, but was enough time for me to grab a Coke Zero, so I've got it right by my side. That's my go-to. So I don't know what you're drinking, Bob, or what you're drinking, David, but hopefully you had enough time to at least...
I'm a nice water guy.
He's a nice water guy. Good job. Way to stay healthy there, Bob. So we do have a few questions that came in, and I know, Bob, you had one that you really wanted to address in the after party. So why don't you go with that question to kick things off, and I'll kind of monitor Facebook and YouTube to see what other questions we had come through.
Yeah, absolutely. David, there's a lot of push, as you know, for acquiring inventory any way they can. The traditional auction houses, the supply lines have really dried up, right? Is there a marketing technique, or is there a marketing campaign that you know of that's working better than others, or how should a dealer approach letting the public know that they buy cars, right? That they literally buy inventory, because so many consumers are just used to a dealer selling them, right? The whole concept of them buying from them is foreign to most people. So any insight on that?
Yeah, I think certainly this is something that requires the most fundamental of activities, and that is going to your database. We also see a lot of dealers who have newsletters that they support. And a lot of times, all they really have to do is to dangle the carrot. So if we can stir curiosity, not necessarily by saying, sell us your car, but get your car's most current value, and leverage the fact that used vehicle values have never been higher than ever before, and get them to click the link and then go through that process. And the beauty of it is, as opposed to sell us your car, the guest is then able to slow walk at a pace that they feel very comfortable. Whereas, if we go back to digital retailing that we talked about earlier, buy now is a little abrupt, but research payments is a good way to start the process. So if we go back to some of the early days when we had companies that were going online and saying value your car, and they would have a young lady walk across the screen and say, we'll be glad to get the value of your car right now, guests were dissuaded from doing what they actually went to the website for, which was to look at inventory, and all of a sudden they got the value of their car. So that process still works, but we've got to be able to leverage it. Notwithstanding, we've got to always put our marquee out there that says we will buy your car. And I think that becomes more fundamental, and a lot of it has to do with placement on the website. And we go to dealer websites all the time, and one of my 20 groups is actually doing an exercise and reviewing each other's websites. And what's not coincidental is placement on your lot. You have a point where it's the hottest spot on the lot. More traffic sees it, more, has the lowest days of inventory if you went by spot on the lot. Same thing happens on your website. And yet a lot of times to sell us your car, it shows up as a drop-down menu as opposed to one of the marquee events in the slideshow or any kind of communication. So marketing has to be patient, and it has to be persistent. And what we've got to do is to keep that message out there, because as we all know, consumers, and I'm going to give you a visual. Imagine this was a drawing on a board. So the consumer's interest is really high when it is, and then it dips, and then it comes back, and then it kind of dips, and then it comes back. What we want to do is to be level with our messaging, and as they work through the dips, we catch them as they're peaking again. Even if they were interested once, we want to bring them back when they're hotter, because on Thursday I was interested in getting a trade value, and I got it. I was a little disappointed, but by the next Thursday, now I'm really full on ready to do something. So we've got to be persistent, and we've got to make sure that we target properly. We've got to give good reasons why people will want to do their sell to the dealership. You don't have to get mugged. We handle all your title work. You're going to get a check today, and almost like that Abe Lincoln close, right? So here's the good reasons why you should sell to a dealer, and here's the things you need to watch out for if you sell it on your own. So be patient, keep that education going, and I think you're going to have better results over time.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Here's another question for you. So you may have addressed this already, but we'll go ahead and reiterate it here in our after party. But what's the best response to a request for a vehicle that isn't available? Because we know that people are trying to sell them fast and are listing them quick, and it may not be available yet. And so what's the best response there? Well,
first and foremost, we teach honesty is the best policy. And yet at the same time, the placement of the statement of honesty is really critical. So, DJ, if you called me up and you said, David, is that 2021 Red X available? I would say, DJ, what a wonderful choice. Knowing full well in my mind, I just got a report that said that X is not available. So I would say, DJ, what a wonderful choice. What drew you to that one? Was it the price? Was it the color? Was it perhaps the equipment? And then you would tell me, and if on the off chance you said, well, I'm just interested in the vehicle in that price range, that one was one you had, then I know I've got options. But if you said, David, I traded that car in a few years ago. It meant a lot to me at that time, and I want to buy it back. Then I'm going to have to say, DJ, I'm sorry, that particular one's not available. But if you give me any element of opportunity, I'm going to say, oh, great. Well, while I'm verifying whether or not that vehicle is available, DJ, may I check to see what else we have that would fit your needs? And now I build an alternative into the dialogue, as opposed to immediately saying, oh, DJ, the one you wanted is already sold. Tough luck, buddy. Boy, those things are going fast. And now you're irritated, and I've blown the opportunity. The bridge is destroyed and we can't cross it together. So resist the temptation to immediately blurt out whether it's available and say, DJ, great choice. We've had a lot of interest in that vehicle. Why don't we do this while I check on its availability, because we sell inventory fast. Let me see what else we've got that would fit. Would you like to hear about that? And that works really well.
That's good. In some of your training, it just brought up just a personal experience for me, and that's getting a hold of a service department. It still seems to be quite an ordeal for me to call a dealership and get to the right person. It seems like I funnel through like 7 or 8 different people, no matter what my need is there at the dealership. So what are some best practices that are there to really start to have a better customer experience, I think is what it is. And that's just one little element of it, but it seems to be so prominent in, certain places that I do business with. And so I got to imagine it's probably the same case in other places. So what are some best practices there to really help, switch some things around to have a better customer experience?
Yeah, education and daily awareness. We have employees come into work every day, and we have low expectations of their performance level. We think you work in a BDC, you don't know anything about inventory. There's no way you'll ever get smart. I've been doing this for 40 years and you'll never be as smart as me. Give me a break. The technology and all of the elements that are right there on the screen in front of them, all of us can be an expert inside a couple of days. And all we have to do is to teach a team member to be confident and be able to be a single point of contact for the guest. It is so offensive to me when we think that a young person with no experience or an older person with no experience can't handle a dialogue with someone and speak truthfully and say, DJ, that's a great question. Let's look that up together. And this strategy that we call co-navigating, where we literally get on the screen together and I say, Bob, I just sent you a link. Let's look at that vehicle together and we'll go through the specs and the options, and we'll also look at other inventory that we've got. And now we're walking those steps together, as opposed to me being the big expert and saying, the best thing for you to do is to come into the dealership. And my least favorite line, and I got a lot of them, so my least favorite for this show is, your presence is your leverage. Well, dude, I'm 3 states away. I guess I have no leverage. So what I would rather say to the guest is, my presence is your leverage. I'm going to go to work for you, and I'm going to make sure that you get all of the best that I can offer. And I've been doing this for a week, a day, a month, a year, 10 years. You're going to get the very best that we've got, and I'm going to go to bat for you. I want to make sure that that guest hears from that single point of contact the ability to move them forward, as opposed to, gosh, I'm an unskilled labor, and I really can only say, when can you come in? Oh, it just drives me crazy.
It sounds like
I got a question for you, David. When it comes to listings, right? There's so many variables in places to list vehicles, as we know. We certainly have one. There's lots of them out there. When it comes to what's important in listing your car, right? Everyone wants to go price. We've always known that if you paid attention, price is like 6th on a customer's list, but they may sort by or whatever. So ultimately, you had to be in the ballpark, or you never got the interest, right? Certainly if they filtered you out. But what makes the difference when you go on a listing site and there's 25 of the same thing you requested on the SRP page at a time? What sorts them out? What's important? Is it photos? Is it the quality of photos? We've all heard that a stock photo is worse than no photo, right? But what about the differentiators? What about the unique elements of it? What is in your mind makes the customer gravitate towards one particular car? Because it can't be price. You got 25 of them all within $100 of each other. What's the differentiators in your opinion?
Well, as someone who recently bought a home and sold a home, the story behind it, I think, is really important. But that story has to be supported with what we call beautiful photos. These stock images and elements like that are fine, but that just means you're mass market. But if you look at some of the real quality producers on, say, eBay that we've seen for years and years, and we talk about digital retailing, it's all new. Well, it hadn't been new on eBay for a long time. So
right.
if you do beautiful photos, quality descriptions, and on the market pricing, that's the triad. That's the holy trilogy, if you will, that you have to have in order for this to be successful. And it's great that we have technologies that will write our descriptions, but they get to be commoditized and they make everything sound like the exact same vehicle. But if you're listing a home, if you're listing a house, a car, if you can put those differentiators in to let the guest visualize the quality of this product, it makes a big difference to them. So, but you got to draw them in with that. And then additionally, having 3 or 4 well-placed bulletins within the sequence of photos that highlight things that make you different, whether it's warranty for life or tires for life or all those other variables that differentiate. I think those need to be sprinkled in there so that we're not just blowing them out with tire shot. We're also doing some merchandising throughout the process.
Yeah, it's interesting because our consumer side of our business, as you know, we have millions of consumers who communicate with us all the time. And one of their number one frustrations is they can't tell the difference online between the good cars and the bad cars. Everyone's got what they call a certified car. Everyone does VIN populated descriptions. You can't even name a car that doesn't have power windows, power locks, tilt, and cruise. Why that's in the descriptions is some SEO optimization salesperson convinced them of that 15 years ago when they were selling SEO optimization. But, when they're all the same and they all have pretty photos, the consumer gets very frustrated. And it's interesting, you talk about being able to separate, the car itself and the dealer itself, because there's value propositions. And, consumer needs confidence in the car. That's our job, right? They need confidence in the price, and they need confidence in the dealer, right? Those are the 3 elements that they tell us. And it's interesting to hear your take on that. So thanks for that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So I come from the old days where you literally could give the phone number of the person who traded in. And when you were trading for it, you would say, you're going to get a phone call and I'm giving you more money for your car. So be sure to do me a solid and make your car sound good.
You mean we can't do that anymore?
Yeah.
No, don't try it. Please don't. You did not hear that on Just the Facts. That's good. Well, that's all the questions we have in here. Any other follow-up questions, Bob, for our guest, Mr. David Kain?
Yeah, David, just if you could just summarize into just 1 or 2 quick bullet points that our dealers can take with them when it comes to who's on the phone, which was the topic of this conversation. But in general, leads are coming from all over the place, right? What is the 1 or 2 bullet points that they could take with them today that you'd like to sum it up with today?
Yeah, so we all grew up with always be closing. And the bullet point I'd like to leave with everybody is always be helping. And if you advance the calls of your guest as they're shopping for a vehicle, whether it's information, pricing, negotiations and such, by being helpful with them as opposed to always citing for the highest gross and the unit with the age on it, help the guest make a good decision and you're going to get better results. And secondly, be patient. We're in an environment that says sell today, but a lot of our guests need more time and we need to be patient with them and help them come along in the process and give them time to develop the right level of engagement with you.
That's awesome. Those are 2 easy points they can certainly take with them. So appreciate that for sure.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And Thank you, David, so much. It was an honor having you on Just the Facts on episode 12 with us today. We appreciate that. Bob, thank you as always for your time, your expertise, and that dealer perspective. And I hope you that joined us had a great time, learned some things, took some notes, and implement some of these processes in your current process, because I think it will go a long way and you'll see some success. So again, from us at Just the Facts, thanks for tuning in. For you guys, we'll see you at some point in some time, but thanks for joining us, everyone, on Just the Facts.